to everyone who has joined us here to discuss today the second module of quality rights. And the module is all about human rights, mental health, and disability. So I'll be coordinating the session with my colleague, that is Amy. She will introduce herself and she'll tell us where she's joining us from post on 23rd of May. But today is when we are doing the release of that particular module. So apologies for the same. So we'll go straight to the module of today. It's an interesting module. Like I've said, the title is Human Rights, Mental Health, and Disability. So to begin with, we'll try to understand the definition of, and basically this module, the module that we are doing today is building on the introduction of the module that was done earlier, that is module 1. So it's still taking us deep into the modules of the entire training. So human rights from the previous definition, it was defined in terms of its characteristics, and it was defined as these are the same basic rights that everyone enjoys. They're not privileges. They cannot be granted or revoked by anyone. So basically, each and everyone is entitled to those rights. And then mental health, of course, from the definition WHO, and the individual also can cope with the normal stresses of life. The individual also can work productively and fruitfully and can also contribute to the community. Then there's also disability that I'm not going to define it at this point in time, but we'll have its definition as we go deep into the module. So our second slide, we are going to take a look at the objectives of the module. And the first objective is recognizing stigma and discrimination in disability. The second objective is understanding the models of disability. I guess at this point is whereby we are going to get the definition of the disability. Of course, we are going to discuss different models of disability. I never wanted to define it at that point to different model of disability. Then the third objective is to acquire an understanding of the convention of disability, or does it achieves its objective of respecting, protecting, and fulfilling the human rights of persons with disability. Then objective that we are going to look at the real life scenario. Here we are going to have one or two cases whereby we are going to look at how the rights of people with disabilities are either held or not held or maybe violated. Then the last objective is the ability to identify conflict ways to respect and uphold the rights of people with psychosocial disability, intellectual disability, or cognitive disability. So how best can we work to uphold and respect the rights of persons with disability? So I'll go direct to the definition of the following terms. Again, we have stigma and discrimination. Stigma is viewing someone in a negative way because of a distinguishing character. And discrimination, treating someone differently, obviously or subtly due to unjustified reasons. We have stereotypes, widely held, widely held, fixed, oversimplified and often wrong perceptions or ideas about a particular group of people. Then we have common stereotypes, dangerous and unpredictable, should be looked up, should be locked up, have no insight. So basically, these are the common stereotypes that people tend to ascribe to people with disability. Yes, then we are going to look at the impact of the stigma, the discrimination, and stereotypes on the people with disabilities. So there's that lack of acceptance, separation, rejection, prejudice, results in feelings of shame, blame, hopelessness, distress, and reluctance to seek and accept help. And the three are connected: stigma, discrimination, stereotyping. What does it give birth to in the long run? It denies people the right as human beings. So the next thing we're going to look at are the models. I'll go direct to the models of disability. Personally, I think this is what forms the heartbeat of this module. Of course, there's a lot to discuss in this module, and we could not discuss all of it in this limited time that we are having. Those will have an opportunity to go through the model. They'll see what we'll be presenting today, but in a more deeper sense and also in detail. So our understanding of disability is directly influenced by the model we ascribe to, and the following are the models. That's why I never wanted to give a definition at that point in time when you are starting the module. So we are going to look at the medical model. Disability is a medical problem that needs. It is a medical problem that needs to be solved or artificial. So according to the medical model, disability is defined in terms of what? A physical impairment. And that impairment makes someone not to be normal. And because of that, that person needs to be treated differently until that person is given a what? Medical intervention to come out of that particular disability. Then we look at the charity model. According to the charity model, people with disability are helpless and need to be cared for. People are regarded as object of charity, positive recipient of welfare, entirely dependent. So, by the way, according to the medical model, the disability is centralized to an individual. According to the charity model, also it is also centralized to an individual, but the difference is that it looks at people as helpless, and they need to be cared for and provided for through charity. Then we have the social model. According to the social model, it focuses on eliminating what? Attitudinal and environmental barriers, allowing people to participate fully in the society. So according to the social model, it acknowledges disability resulting from the social barriers that make it difficult for people to participate fully in the society. Then we have the human rights model. It builds on the social model, whereby apart from acknowledging the social barriers as the definition of disability, it goes beyond that and says that in as much as people are having disability because of social barriers, then all these people have got equal rights that they need to enjoy in the society. And also this particular model, the human rights model, it looks it looks at these social barriers as what? Discriminating social factors that make it difficult for people to access their rights. And because of that, the human rights model steps in to ensure that these social barriers are removed so that people can get their rights. Then maybe what is the definition of disability up to this point in time? So WHO, according to the quality rights training, it advocates for the human rights model. Because if you look at the entire training, it's all about quality rights, which has got a lot to do with the rights of individual, and it is this model that advocates for them. rights of the persons with disability. So I don't know, Amanda is going to come in at this point. Amy is going to come in at this point, and she will take us through the Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability. Of course, she's going to introduce herself. She'll tell us where she's joining us from. And maybe we'll welcome comments, questions, as we'll be wrapping it up. So we are not going to discuss much of it. Of course, there's a lot to be discussed in this module, but I would recommend people to go and also do the module themselves. And the more questions maybe in the group, in the WhatsApp group, we'll check that. So,
My name is Amy, and I'm a nurse. I'm really glad to have done this because I really found it interesting, particularly the models describing the disabilities. Because as a health professional, it is almost automatic that when you look at someone with mental health disability, your mind goes directly to what can we do to help in terms of interventions. It doesn't strike you that maybe this person is thinking what the person is thinking or what the person is feeling. Your first thing is, what can I do to help? And most times your mind is geared towards thinking of someone in the sense of what interventions you can do. And then there's also the charity model, of course, which your background, like if you have like a spiritual background, then you have all these guidance on how you should be kind to people. So when you look at money, your mind automatically thinks, oh, wow, I need to help them. I need to help them. It's like they're a charity case and they cannot help each other. They cannot help themselves and they are reliant on you for help. So with all these were the most predominant thoughts of people with disability before, of course, as Ramadan explained, that they are the social model and then the human rights model came to being. But even with all these models, we find that people with disability are still discriminated against in this time and age, and their rights are still not upheld. So because of these persistent denial of rights, the UN felt that it was important that they develop a convention of rights of persons with disability, which was adopted in 2006. And by 2014, 147 countries had ratified these bill. But the thing is, it's not something that's completely new. It's something that is actually part of the basic rights of human beings. But because the people with disability, including people with mental health disability, continually had their rights denied, they needed to expound it so that people can actually spot their biases early, and the government would be able to put in measures to protect people with disabilities, because people with disability, they are citizens, they have rights like every other person, they are capable of making their own decisions, and they can form free they can make their own choices based on informed consent, and they have the ability to be active members of the society. They are not charity cases, or they are not people who are broken, who need to be made so that before they are made whole, they can't make decisions for themselves. They have the rights, and that is really what the Convention of Rights of Persons with Disability aimed to emphasize. So it ratifies the application of the rights, like it focuses the rights so that people can actually just see, like, okay, we all have these rights, but people with disabilities experience it differently in this way. And how can we make adaptations to protect their rights? And where do we need to reinforce protection? Because there are areas where we were falling short as communities and as countries, and there needed to be reinforcement of these rights so that people with disabilities, including people with mental health disabilities, can live wholesome lives as human beings in equal rights to equal rights to every other person. So What are some of these rights? The rights that they have that could easily be trampled upon are rights like right to self-determination, independent living. You find that most people with mental health issues, particularly like who may have challenging behaviors, they are easily taken to institutions to restrict them because people are not willing to offer support and people are not willing to deal and cope with them. And sometimes you find that it's just that the environment is hostile and that is why they're acting out. But they do have a right to independent living so that they can live freely in the society with the support of the government and the people around them. Then there is equality and non-discrimination. It's although it's not fair, yet as Ramadan was describing the terms stigma, stereotype, these are things that are really common, and some of them we do unconsciously that we do not even notice that we are trampling on their rights. But they have a right to equality and non-discrimination. It means that when they come to the table to talk upon any subject, they should be treated with equal respect as any other person. Then they have the right to privacy and dignity. Privacy and dignity. Um, they have a right to privacy and dignity. This it's usually easily trampled upon because maybe it's correlated to the one for self-determination, where people can feel like they know better than the person with disability. And so even if they are to want some privacy and to be treated with dignity, we may easily feel that, oh, they don't know what they want. Let us do this to protect them. But you see, they have a right, they're just as equal as the rest of us. And they have of course, rights to reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation is mostly when you're looking at areas of employment where the employer has to make at least a reasonable accommodation to adjust to these people who have disabilities. So you will find that there can be issues, say, for example, uh, someone who has the Down syndrome. A person with Down syndrome can operate as a fully functional member of the community or the society, but they may not be as fast as a person who does not have Down syndrome, for example. And therefore, as an employer, say if you were to employ someone with Down syndrome, you'd ensure that they are in an environment, say that is moderate, you make like a reasonable adjustment. Of course, if you're managing a place, there are fast-paced places and there are places which are moderate. So you put them in a place that say it's moderate paced or even a slower pace so that they're able to cope rather than putting them in a place that is continually fast paced, which would give them stress and then they would end up quitting. So if it is within your means to make a reasonable adjustment to accommodate them, especially in areas that are areas of employment, we should be able to do that for them. Just like we would create ramps for people who are physically disabled so that they're able to access buildings easily and not required to go through a whole load of things just to get services which they require or to access offices so that they can do they can work. So how would we apply these how would we apply the Convention of Rights of Persons with Disability? It's not too far from how we would want to be treated in ourselves. Now, we can tell a story of Peter. This was adapted from the module, and it's a story about someone called Peter. And Peter lives with his family, and everything is going well. But unfortunately, he has like an episode where he loses control of his emotions, and as a result, medical personnel are called to help calm him down. And Peter is moved to a mental health facility that is very far away from his family, and he is not allowed to leave. Now, when you look at Peter's case, you wonder what rights are violated. They are very obvious. It is true that he may have lost control, and that is something that is normal for someone who has, like, if someone who has mental health issues. For example, if Peter said was bipolar, the people who are bipolar will go through manic phases and then they'll go through depressive phases. So if he's going through a manic phase, then that is something that would be expected to happen. But we need to make room for Peter so that when he is having a manic disorder, these symptoms can be controlled and then he can continue going on to living his life. It is not fair to take him to a place that is really far away from his home so that it's true you're helping him to manage his emotions, to make him calm down so that he's not a harm to himself and a harm to his family. But taking him away so that he doesn't have contact with his family, that is not just, and that does not uphold a right. And when you find that these many faces, they resolve and completely go away. Once that has resolved, we have no, like in that case, they have no reason to detain him because he has a right to move back and to go back to his family. And we should aim to have these facilities closed because if he is very far away from his, say the facility is far away, I think we will be doing more harm. We will be treating him as if he has no right to determine, no right to determination so that he can't determine what happens to him. And when we look at the mental health services in Kenya, I know we are trying and the government is trying, but we may not be trying hard enough because not all counties have these centers in place. And so say if you are in Western Kenya, let's say like I can talk say for Homa Bay, Migori, and that area, you find that there are no proper institutions so that if someone needed to go to an institution just for a short while until the symptoms are controlled, they'd have to go all the way to Kisumu. And when they go to Kisumu, you see they're really far away from their families. And if they're far away from their families, it can even hinder this person healing and joining the community because they are far away, they don't have support, and then I don't know, it's crashing really. So you of course, so the family in the community, everyone was telling them, take her to an institution, take her to an institution. They'll take care of John Becker. There's no reason why you should keep her. And then their parents give her up, not really give her up. Of course, they're still the parents, but they take her to an institution. They take her to an institution that's far away so that she's away from her parents. And then in the process, there are people who are talking about mental health and issues like that. And they go to this institution and they make recordings, including of John, without asking for consent or anything. So then in her case, you want to look and see what is the role of professionals and what are their biases. As professionals, of course, we are human beings. So we have our biases, even though we can say things in the book and we can go to training for capacity buildings, but sometimes our biases go beyond those trainings that we receive. And so you find that in John's case, the practitioners failed her in the sense that they didn't even explore with the parents a course for like how they can manage at home. They didn't give the parents a chance to try before they could even say that, oh, we can't manage. At least with support, and if they were positive about it, the parents would have given it a try. And most times, if they give it a try and they're willing, you'll find that they create a really good environment for the kids and they can give them the best development. Then you have the role of the community. They don't have support from the community, then they give up this child. This is an abuse against a child because a child has the right to grow up in an environment where they are loved and an environment with their parents. And in most cases, there is no one who can love a child more than the parent. And so in this case, you find that the professionals failed, they didn't give support. The community failed, they didn't give support. John is taken to an institution. Her rights have been abused as a child because she's growing up without her parent. And then you also find that there are people, of course, they want to highlight the plight of people with disability, but you can't just go and we can't just go and start recording and saying, oh, they need help and show this. They need to have an informed consent, even as within the community. If we are interacting with people with disability, we need to treat them as people who are independent and can make up their own minds and make decisions for themselves. So John should have been involved in telling her why the recording was being made, and if she agreed to be part of that recording. Then you see an NGO comes in to help John, but John cannot read small print. They gave her her rights in small print. She can't read. It's of no help with us for her. But then you find that they later revoked this and they made it available in big print so that she's able to read. And then John was able to get compensation for her rights being wrongfully violated. So how can we be allies? How can we ensure that in our journey we are able to help people with disability? How can we be more present in their lives? The first thing is we have to be first respecters of human rights. We cannot preach what we are not practicing. To begin, we need to be able, we need to be able to uphold these rights, not violate their human rights. Then we need to protect their human rights. So the main people with mental health disability may not be able to speak vocally for themselves, but as people who know that they deserve to be treated with the same respect as every other person, we need to be able to stand up for them and to protect their rights. Then, of course, there's fulfilling rights. Now, in the fulfilling rights, it's taking steps to ensure that their rights are protected, putting in place policies, legislations to ensure that their rights are protected and that they can live as full members of their society. Now, I'm going to give a bit of analogy on how we can be an ally. So say, for example, you're a person and you're in a room, let's say you're in a setting with many rooms and you find a person with a disability has a room, and then you just go in and move into the room, like walk into the room, you don't knock or anything, because maybe you're afraid, say, if they take long to reply, you don't want to sit there and wait after knocking for them to say, come in. To respect that person's right is to stand and wait at the door, and to ask for permission. Do not enter until the person tells you to come in. So you stand, you wait, you protect them in that way. You respect them in that way. You wait for them to respond. Then how can you protect these rights? It means that if you see another person going into that room without waiting to be told to go in, tell them, wait for that person. We need to be vocal to protect them and say, you have to wait until the person tells you to go in for you to go in. And then how can you fulfill the right? You can put a poster outside and say, please wait to be allowed to go in. Please wait for an answer before you go in. That way everyone knows that they have to wait even though it will take them long. Yeah, I think that is what we had prepared for today about it. But it's an interesting module, and if you did get a chance to do it, I really encourage you to do it, because you'll see some of those cases and you'll be like, if I didn't know this, then I'd be violating these rights, But we need to stand together to protect the rights of persons with disabilities in general, and specific people with mental health. And at this point, we will accept any questions or any clarifications, or if anyone has a contribution they want to make. We don't have long to go, about 4 minutes, so we will take any question, or if you want to express yourself, we can give you an opportunity to talk.
At the chat section, I'm not seeing any question. So maybe I'll ask one, yeah? Okay. The question is, why are we having Universal Declaration of Human Rights And at the same time, we are having convention on the rights of persons with disability. Yeah, I think that is my question.
Yes. So
Amy, are you going to take it?
you can take it because that's an important part of this module.
Yeah. So I think the reason why we are having both, so in as much as we used to have Universal Declaration of Human Rights to protect the rights of everyone, it was also realized that the rights of persons with disability were violated in as much as we are having the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability came in to fill that gap in as much as we people, everyone's right is protected by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but the rights of persons with disability are still violated. So that is the reason why we had the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, which came in place in 2006 to fill that gap. I don't know whether there's any other question that someone may want to ask, which is related with what we have. Maybe another thing to add on to, someone may wonder that where is Amy getting all of these violations of rights and where are they coming from? Of course, from the module, we have the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. We have like 30 articles in them. They have those rights. So you can go through those rights such that when such cases are being discussed, or maybe you happen to be in an environment whereby a right of a person with disability is being violated, you can spot out and swing into action to help. Yeah. So I don't know. And yes, Amy, you want to say something?
Yeah, just to add, like one of the things I'm really glad that not that people here are taking this module because once you're aware, you you will protect. You'll at least know so as to be an ally. You'll be able to respect the people with disability. But on top of that, let's go beyond respecting them. Let's be their protectors. And how we can protect them is we need to tell other people so to make them aware because sometimes people do things out of lack of knowledge. So let's make people aware and also not just people like the community, but people with disability also need to know their rights. So we can also talk to them and make them know that this is what you're entitled to and no one should treat you any less.
Yeah, I
So
think we'll
yeah,
take. Yeah, I think we are through. Yeah, up to this point, we'll say thank you for everyone who attended this discussion and any contribution that they've made. And
yes.
we are looking forward to meet you people in the third
The next
module.
module. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you everyone who managed to come. Bye-bye. Hope you have a good evening. Happy
Yeah.
Madaraka.
Happy Madaraka Day.